A clear weekend afternoon in San Francisco, the glass buildings reflected the golden sunlight like mirrors, and somewhere in an office on the 23rd floor, Ethan Miller was quietly fine-tuning the final lines of code for the tech product he had spent nearly a year developing. No one in the company understood the structure of the system better than he did, and no one loved it as much as he loved every bit of its design, every feature he had poured his heart into. Ethan wasn't the type who liked to talk much. He lived quietly, came to work on time, worked diligently, and rarely joined after-work parties. But every time the company faced a challenge, Ethan was always the first to come up with a solution, and even though he didn't receive many compliments or recognition, he kept working as if the company's success was his personal mission. His story began when he was still an engineering student, living in a small apartment on the outskirts of Sacramento with nothing but an old laptop and a dream of doing something meaningful. After graduation, he didn't choose big companies like Google or Meta, even though he was invited for internships. Instead, he joined a tech startup called Virion Tech, back then still small and unknown. Ethan was one of the first employees. He witnessed the company from its early days of chasing small funding rounds, surviving on partial paychecks, all the way to launching its first product. He wasn't just a programmer, he was the heart of the development team. Ethan's biggest idea was an integrated AI platform that helped businesses manage real-time data, and that product is now the very reason the company is valued in the hundreds of millions. And yet, in the 5 years since, the name Ethan Miller had never once been mentioned in speeches, promotional videos, or press articles. Instead, all the spotlight went to the management team, especially the new director, Derek Coleman, who had just been hired 8 months ago from a major company to bring a fresh breeze into the growth strategy. Derek was the complete opposite of Ethan. Smooth talker, always dressed in designer suits and always full of polished words. In his eyes, Ethan was the old-school type, great at his job but lacking flair, not someone who contributed to the company's modern image. "You're really good, Ethan," Derek once said with a loaded tone. "But in this world, no one remembers the craftsman, they only remember the one who presents the masterpiece." Ethan just gave a faint smile. He knew he wasn't good at performing, but he believed that one day, true value would speak for itself. And that day seemed to have finally come when the company announced the official launch event for the completed version of the product Ethan had single-handedly designed. It was a major event, attended by the media, investors, the executive board from the parent company in New York, and even some VIP guests from the tech industry. Ethan wasn't excited about fame. All he wanted was to see his brainchild step out into the world, to see it operate just as he had envisioned when he first sketched the design. Even though he wasn't chosen to speak at the event, he quietly prepared a special gift, a short video paying tribute to those who had gone through every development phase with him, including the design, testing, and operations team. But deep down, he couldn't shake off a nagging feeling. In recent weeks, Derek had been acting strangely. Private meetings with upper management, revisions to the event schedule, and an order to the media team to remove Ethan's name from all presentation slides. Every time Ethan asked about it, Derek either dodged the question or gave vague, non-committal answers. And then, the day of the event arrived. It was held at a 5-star hotel in downtown San Francisco. Ethan entered the grand ballroom, eyes scanning the lavish stage, lights beaming onto the product logo, the very same logo he had designed alone at 3 a.m. in his tiny apartment. He had no idea that in just a few minutes, his entire life was about to change forever, and the gift he carried with him would be the very thing that would bring the entire event crashing down, exposing a truth no one saw coming. Soft music floated through the spacious room, warm golden lights casting a glow over expensive suits and elegant evening gowns. Tech insiders, investors, and media representatives were chatting animatedly, clinking champagne glasses and discussing the next revolution that Virion Tech was about to unveil. Ethan stood quietly in a corner, eyes fixed on the stage where the product logo was displayed across a giant LED screen. No one paid attention to him. The man in a simple button-down shirt, holding a USB drive that contained the tribute video. In it, he had carefully stitched together moments of the team's hard work behind-the-scenes footage, exhausted yet determined faces, messages of gratitude exchanged between departments, all as a tribute to those who worked in silence, just like him. The program began with an introduction from the communications team, followed by representatives from partner firms, strategic advisors, But the moment that silenced the entire ballroom was when Derek Coleman, the new CEO, stepped up. With confident posture, piercing eyes, and a persuasive voice, he took the stage like a Hollywood star. "Ladies and gentlemen," Derek began with a charming smile, "today isn't just the launch of a new product. Today marks a turning point. The moment Viron Tech steps out of its outdated shadow and becomes a leading force in artificial intelligence." Ethan frowned. Outdated shadow? Was he talking about the very people who had built this company from the ground up? Derek continued his speech with a stream of polished buzzwords. He spoke of bold creative processes, breakthrough visions, and a dynamic new leadership team. Not once did he mention the development team. Not once did the name Ethan Miller come up. And then, Derek paused, took a sip of water for dramatic effect, and said, "But to innovate, we must have the courage to let go of what's outdated. Sometimes that means removing elements that no longer align with our new direction." Murmurs began to ripple through the crowd. "Therefore," Darren said, his voice dropping like a verdict, "I'm announcing that, effective immediately, Ethan Miller, the head of our engineering division, will be terminated, as decided by the board of directors." The entire ballroom fell silent. Some people turned to look at Ethan, who stood frozen in a corner, eyes wide, clutching the USB tightly in his hand. Derek turned toward him, offering a thin smile, and raised his voice. "We appreciate Ethan's past contributions, but in a fast-evolving environment, we can't hold on to people who focus only on working hard while forgetting how to adapt. We need influencers, not pathetic relics." That last word, pathetic, landed like a cold dagger straight to Ethan's chest. A few people audibly exhaled in discomfort. Some guests clearly disapproved, but most remained quiet, unwilling to get involved. Ethan slowly stepped forward, no longer showing shock in his expression. He didn't react with anger, didn't shout or argue. Calmly, he asked the event coordinator for the microphone. His voice was low but steady. "I have a small gift for today's event. It's just a short video, a tribute to the teammates who helped create this product." Derek raised an eyebrow, barely suppressing a smug grin. "As long as it doesn't waste too much time," he said. Ethan inserted the USB into the main projector. The screen went black. Then it lit up with scenes, the development team working late into the night, clips showing their collective joy after solving a complex bug, birthday messages exchanged among coworkers. The atmosphere in the room softened, touched by the sincerity of the moment. Raw, unpolished, but full of heart. In the final minute of the video, the tone abruptly changed. An audio clip began to play. Derek's voice from a private meeting. "I'll take Ethan's design, tweak a few things, and send it directly to the higher-ups. He won't suspect a thing. Tech guys are usually naive and full of themselves." Then came screenshots of emails between Derek and a senior manager. "Name has been updated. I'm listed as the lead on the concept. Make sure Ethan doesn't appear anywhere in the board presentation." The ballroom erupted. Gasps, whispers, phones rising to record. Several investors stood up. The event staff looked panicked. A PR coordinator rushed to the stage, but too late to stop the video. It ended with a single line. "Truth doesn't need applause. It only needs life." Ethan took the mic again. This time he said only one sentence. "Thank you for giving me the ending I deserve." And then he walked off the stage while the entire ballroom remained stunned. As Ethan exited the room, the spotlight still hadn't dimmed, but the product launch event had, for all intents and purposes, frozen in time. Derek stood under the lights, paralyzed. His previously smug expression had gone pale. His lips moved, trying to form words, but nothing came out. No one clapped, no one smiled. Everyone looked at each other, then back at the screen. One final line still glowed up. The silence was finally broken by a female journalist, a representative from Tech Future Weekly, who quickly stood up and turned toward the organizers. "Excuse me, but is everything that just played real? Is there concrete evidence? Is this an internal case of intellectual property theft?" Several investors began leaving their seats, phones glued to their ears, calling their firms. Online, the video, which had been streamed live, began spreading at lightning speed. Many were reposting it, adding hashtags like Ethan Miller, Varian scandal, AI theft. Within just 10 minutes, Varian Tech's homepage was overloaded with traffic. Waves of angry comments appeared on platforms like Twitter, LinkedIn, and Reddit. Former employees began speaking up anonymously, confirming that Ethan was indeed the driving force behind the product and that Derek often cut corners to steal credit. Meanwhile, in New York, at the headquarters of the parent corporation, the executive board had been watching the live stream. The moment the video ended, they cut the broadcast and immediately called an emergency Zoom meeting. Less than an hour later, Derek was called into a private meeting room backstaff. Only a handful of people knew what was said during that conversation, but the outcome quickly spread. Derek was immediately suspended from his position, pending an internal investigation. A spokesperson for the parent company made a brief statement to the press. "We are committed to transparency and fairness. Any unethical conduct, if confirmed, will be addressed seriously." Derek emerged from the meeting looking dazed, stripped of all authority. His expensive suit couldn't hide the defeated look in his eyes. He quietly exited the hotel through the back entrance, avoiding the cameras and reporters waiting in the main lobby. Ethan didn't go home right after the product launch. He drove along the coastal road near Pacifica, where the ocean crashed against the cliffs like nature's own deep breath. The cold wind whipped across his face, but inside he felt an unexpected peace. He wasn't gloating. He didn't feel joy. Just a sense of release, like someone had finally loosened a rope that had been choking him for years. He had no regrets about what he did. More than anything, he believed that those who truly deserved recognition had finally been heard. When he returned to his small apartment that evening, Ethan found over 100 messages and missed calls on his phone, from former coworkers, college friends, and even investors. One message made him stop and read it twice. It was from Linda Park, the product director at a well-known venture capital firm in Silicon Valley. "I saw your video. Brave, honest, and smart. If you're thinking of building something new, call me. I want to hear your ideas." In the following days, Varian Tech fell into a major PR crisis. Shareholders demanded a full investigation. The leadership was forced to publicly apologize to Ethan and open an independent review. Dozens of emails, messages, and internal documents were gathered. Preliminary findings confirmed that Derek had intentionally removed Ethan's name from the product's credit and had misrepresented the truth to the board. But the surprise was, many employees, once considered invisible, began resigning in solidarity with Ethan. They shared posts, updated their statuses, and declared, "We don't work for a company that doesn't respect its people." Ethan's story quickly became a hot topic on forums like Hacker News, Product Hunt, and TechCrunch. One user wrote, "This isn't just a company issue. It's a lesson in respecting intellectual integrity, and that no one should stay silent forever when being exploited." The post was shared over 100,000 times in just 3 days. Some industry experts even began referring to Ethan as the silent hero of the tech world. And in a live TV interview shortly afterward, when asked, "If you could go back to that moment, would you do anything differently?" "I stayed silent for years. But when someone is called pathetic in front of the whole world just for giving their best, it's no longer a personal issue. That's a truth that needs to be spoken." A week after the launch event, Ethan Miller sat in a small cafe in San Mateo, holding a cold cup of Americano, eyes fixed on his laptop screen. In front of him was a rough interface draft, blocks of early code, a few sketched-out ideas, and a project plan with barely 10 bullet points. Rolled from zero. But this time, there were no hollow meetings, no office politics, no empty praise or backstabbing. Just ideas, passion, and complete freedom. What surprised Ethan was, he wasn't alone. Within less than 2 weeks, over 11 people from his former dev team had emailed him. Some apologized for not speaking up sooner, others were straightforward. "I quit. If you're starting a new company, I want in." They didn't come for money. They came for belief in the person who had stayed up with them through sleepless nights, the one who didn't chase spotlight, didn't steal credit, didn't play games, a quiet but resolute leader. Ethan rented a small office in a co-working space in Palo Alto. Not as fancy as the old headquarters, but warm and genuine. They named their group 4JI, a symbol of rebirth, meaning a forge for artificial intelligence. The first project Ethan wanted to build wasn't a massive product like before. He wanted something useful, practical, something that could help everyday workers, the kind big tech often overlooked. His idea was an AI-powered system that analyzed work data to help skilled laborers, like electricians, mechanical engineers, and nurses, improve productivity, save time, and avoid mistakes. A kind of digital assistant, but designed for the working class that tech rarely served. "We don't need to create Skynet," Ethan said during a team meeting. "We just need to build something that helps good people do better work." The team agreed immediately. No lengthy presentations. No need to go through 3 layers of management for approval. They simply got to work. About 3 weeks after 4JI officially launched, Ethan received a video call from Linda Park, the investor who had messaged him on the day of the product launch. Linda appeared with her hair in a high bun, her gaze sharp but not cold. After a few pleasantries, she got straight to the point. "I read your concept draft. My team likes this direction. It's practical, scalable, and most importantly, true to the spirit of its creator." Ethan smiled upon hearing the phrase, "the spirit of its creator." It had been a long time since someone had said that with genuine respect. Linda continued, "We're ready to invest $1,500,000, 0 cents in the pre-seed round, but on one condition. You must remain the leader." Ethan nodded without hesitation. He didn't seek fame, just the opportunity to do what he believed in. Less than 6 months after the official launch, 4JI had its first trial version. They selected small repair shops, local clinics, and mechanical workshops for pilot testing. The results exceeded expectations. Task processing time reduced by 28%, operational errors nearly halved, and most importantly, users felt they were no longer neglected by technology. Articles about 4JI began appearing on Medium, Wired, and then Fast Company. But what moved Ethan the most was a comment from a user named Mike, a mechanic in Arizona. "I never thought I'd work with AI, but this feels like having a smart friend beside me reminding me to check each step and not judging when I make mistakes. Thank you." Ethan read that line 3 times. He didn't cry, but his eyes stung. One autumn afternoon, Ethan returned to the building that once housed Virium Tech's headquarters. Now that name had been replaced, the company sold after the scandal, Derek had vanished from the tech industry, and almost no one mentioned that historic launch event anymore. Ethan stood at a distance, hands in his coat pockets, looking at the building and smiling slightly. "Thank you for pushing me out, otherwise I wouldn't have known how far I could go." Then he turned and walked away, without looking back. 4JI continued to grow each day, and Ethan had come to understand, sometimes being excluded from someone else's party is the way to host your own. 9 months after 4JI officially launched, Ethan took the stage at the Build Forward 2025 Tech Conference in San Francisco, one of the most prestigious events in the tech industry. He didn't wear a suit. No assistant accompanied him. Just a light blue shirt, a remote in hand, and a simple slide with the words, "We build technology to serve those who have been forgotten." Below, the auditorium was packed. Over 2,000 people, silent, not because they were unaccustomed to keynote speeches, but because they were unaccustomed to such genuine simplicity. Ethan didn't talk about fundraising rounds, most billion-dollar figures. He simply shared about a welder in Montana who reduced his working hours to 6 per day, thanks to 4JI, allowing more time to take his daughter to dance classes. He spoke of a nurse on the outskirts of San Diego using the application to avoid medication errors for elderly patients because she had once been unfairly penalized for a mistake that wasn't hers. Technology shouldn't make people feel inferior. It should help them stand taller and be more confident. His words concluded, the auditorium erupted in applause. On Twitter X, the video of his speech was shared over 300,000 times within 12 hours. In the following months, 4JI appeared in nearly every major publication, Forbes, Business Insider, The Verge, but notably, no one called Ethan a $1 million CEO or a tech genius. Every article referred to him as the technologist who listens. Simultaneously, numerous non-profit organizations, community hospitals, and vocational schools approached Forge AI for free system implementation. Ethan and his team not only agreed but also established a separate branch to develop a non-mercenal version solely for community service. The surge didn't stem from million-dollar marketing campaigns but from trust spreading through each user. From one mechanical workshop to a plumbing shop, from a local health station to a senior care center. Forge AI didn't run advertisements. They were mentioned because of effectiveness and kindness. Soon after, Ethan received collaboration offers from 3 major tech companies, the giants renowned for their speed and global influence. One even proposed acquiring Forge AI for $110 million, 0 cents a deal many startups would accept immediately. Ethan merely smiled and replied succinctly, "Thank you, but we haven't completed our mission, and I didn't build this to sell." News spread overnight. Thousands visited Ethan's LinkedIn to send congratulatory messages. Many dubbed him the Steve Jobs of the working class, a person who used technology to uplift, not dominate. While Ethan ascended through perseverance and sincerity, Derek's name nearly vanished from the tech world. After the exposed scandal, he attempted to find work at several small companies but was consistently rejected. No one wanted to bet on someone who had publicly appropriated others' efforts and disrespected colleagues. Some reported that Derek had transitioned to real estate in Texas. His name hadn't surfaced at any tech conference since that launch event. When asked if he wanted to forgive Derek, Ethan simply shook his head. "I don't hate him, but I believe everyone must learn to live with their choices." Forge AI not only became a standout startup in practical AI applications, but was also incorporated into university curricula as an example of tech ethics. Students at MIT, Stanford, and Berkeley organized discussions around Ethan's company operations, not prioritizing profit, yet achieving financial success beyond expectations. A professor in technology management remarked, "Forge AI's proof that you don't need to be cold-hearted to succeed in this industry. You just need to do what's right." 1 year after Ethan left Virion, the core team of Forge AI held a small gathering in his kitchen. Just homemade pizza, cold beer, and a cake with the handwritten message, "Thank you for not giving up." No speeches, no media. But everyone understood. They were part of a journey that no amount of money could buy. A journey of rebuilding trust through sincerity. Ethan stood by the window, watching his teammates laugh and joke, feeling the warmth from the small room, and knowing that. The following spring, a video call from Tokyo opened the next chapter for Forge AI. It was Mr. Kenta Moriyama, CEO of one of Japan's oldest medical equipment manufacturers, Shintex Medical. His deep, slow voice came through the screen. "We heard about Forge AI from an American nurse who studied in Japan. We want to bring your technology to community hospitals in rural areas." Ethan sat up straight, slightly surprised. Forge AI had never had a globalization strategy, but now international invitations were coming to them, not through promotion, but through reputation spreading among real working people. Within 8 months, Forge AI signed agreements with 5 international organizations, from an industrial union in Berlin, a vocational training institute in Sao Paulo, to a field hospital in Nairobi. Ethan's original team of engineers had to split into smaller groups, rotating between continents. They learned local languages, ate foods they had never tried before, and most importantly, they listened to the locals. A female doctor in Kenya once said to the team, "Don't bring American technology here and expect us to use it. Let it learn from how we live, then teach us to use it our way." Ethan heard those words and went silent. It reminded him why he created Forge AI, to serve, not to dominate. Although Forge AI had seen great success as they expanded globally, cracks began to show. Some investors started applying pressure. "Even if we push commercialization, this year's revenue could triple. You need to consider an IPO." A few old team members began to feel burned out from constant travel, overwhelmed with work, and disconnected from the family spirit Forge AI once had. They called for restructuring, hiring a professional CEO, and removing Ethan from direct operations. Ethan now faced the age-old dilemma of idealistic founders. but without losing the soul. He spent many sleepless nights, no longer writing simple lines of code but buried in strategy reports, conflicting viewpoints, and the concerned looks of old teammates. One November evening, Ethan gathered the core team, those who had left Virion, to follow him, back in the small original meeting room in Palo Alto. Stood in the middle of the room, silently looking at each familiar face. "We're moving too fast, and we risk forgetting why we started," he said. "I'm not against growth, but I won't sacrifice values for speed." Long silence followed. Then someone stood up. Linda, the systems engineer. "We followed you not for the money, but because of how you build technology. If I had to choose between a soulless giant 4JI and a humble, kind one, I'd still choose the latter." Everyone in the room nodded. That night they decided to restructure 4JI into a non-profit dual-ums Marcus model. The commercial side would fund the community service side. Growth would be selective, no IPO, no chasing valuation. They would grow and protect the soul. 3 months later, Ethan visited a medical center in Nairobi using 4JI. There he met Zuri, a 16-year-old girl using the system to care for her grandmother with Alzheimer's. Zuri wasn't tech-savvy. She learned how to use 4JI from a TikTok video made by a nurse in Texas. With wide, curious eyes, she told Ethan, "I don't know who made this, but I want to thank them. It helps me remember to give Grandma her medicine, and now she doesn't look at me like I'm a stranger anymore." Ethan bowed his head slightly, smiling. In that moment he understood. No matter how many meetings, strategies, or pressures, 4JI was still doing the right thing, and still needed to stay on that path. In 4JI's third year, Ethan was invited back to build forward. But this time, he didn't stand alone. He brought Zuri from Kenya, Miguel, a technician from Mexico, and Linda, his first companion. On stage, they didn't present technology, they told a story. When Ethan closed with the words, "True technology isn't what makes you superhuman. It's what makes you no longer feel left behind." The audience stood and applauded, long and loud. 4JI had reached the world, but Ethan had kept its very first core. An ordinary person, trying to build something kind. 3 years after being fired, the name Ethan Moore was now on Time magazine's list of the 100 most influential people in the world. 4JI was present in over 30 countries helping millions, from construction workers in India, technicians in Egypt, to nurses in remote parts of the US. But just then, the biggest offer yet appeared, not from a company, but from the US government. One March morning, Ethan received an invitation to a closed-door meeting in Washington, D.C., inside a room at the Department of Homeland Security. Present were 3 representatives from the Pentagon, a senior tech advisor, and someone Ethan never expected to see again. Derek Shaw. Derek sat at the head of the table, hair neatly cut, wearing a suit, his face no longer arrogant, but hardened, like someone who had hit rock bottom and was trying to climb back up. Ethan paused for a moment. "What are you doing here?" "I'm now a temporary advisor to the National Innovation Council. I'm not here for personal reasons. This issue is bigger than all of us." The government wanted 4JI to become the core platform for a national project, building a rapid decision support system for emergencies, natural disasters, and even military operations. They were ready to invest over $2 billion, 0 cents, provide infrastructure, and grant Ethan full development control if he agreed to prioritize government use. Ethan didn't answer right away. He returned to his hotel and couldn't sleep all night. He called Linda, his closest teammate, and the core 4JI team for a Zoom meeting. "Are you willing to let your technology be used for purposes you can no longer control?" And Lyndon said the final words. 4JI was never about machines, Ethan. It was about people, and you taught us that no one has the right to take that away, not even the government. Ethan requested a private meeting with Derek before making his final decision. "I know you hate me," Derek began. "No," Ethan shook his head. "I don't hate you. I feel sorry for you. Because you're too smart not to understand that the most powerful technology isn't the one that serves power, it's the one that makes people feel they deserve a better life. Derek stared at Ethan for a long time, then quietly stood up. No handshake, no goodbye, just a look that seemed to carry regret. 3 days later, Ethan held a global online press conference. Hundreds of thousands tuned in. He stood at Forge AI headquarters. Behind him were engineers, nurses, mechanics, chefs, drivers, students, the real people using Forge AI every day. We were invited to collaborate with one of the most powerful institutions in the world. But Forge AI wasn't born to serve power. It was born to serve those forgotten by power. I know I might be called foolish, but I'd rather keep a small, humane, and fair system than lead an empire that's lost its soul. Social media exploded. Ethan became a rare symbol, someone who dared to say no to power for the sake of ethics. A week later, Ethan received a small package with no sender. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note. There were things I didn't understand when I was younger. This is everything I once stole from you, along with internal Virun emails from the time you were pushed out of the project. You may not need it anymore, but I felt I should return it. Do you? Ethan held the USB in his hand, not angry, not resentful, just a soft smile and a deep breath. Everyone has to face themselves. Forge AI entered its 4th year. No IPO, no acquisition, no race for valuation. But every day, it continued to make small differences in millions of lives, quietly, sustainably, and profoundly. Ethan, the one once called a loser, useless, pathetic, had now become a symbol of a new kind of success, not stepping on others, but lifting them up. The real gift I brought to that launch event was the lesson that sincerity, persistence, and kindness can still win. Ethan Moore's story proves that sometimes humiliation and failure are the strongest catalyst for unlocking human potential. He was fired, belittled, but he didn't choose revenge through bitterness. He used kindness, perseverance, and human values to build a great journey. In real life, anyone can be pushed aside, but what matters is not who knocked you down, it's how you rise and turn that pain into something meaningful for the world. What do you think about Ethan Moore's journey? Would you choose the same path if you were in his shoes? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more touching and powerful stories about life and family.